Hello, welcome to the Selectmen's Meeting for April 18th, 2019. As for roll call, please.
Wayne Miller present.
And Sue Licio is present. I call the meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to announce that the meeting is being tape recorded and ask if anyone else is recording. Okay, chairman's additions or deletions. We have two last-minute ones. We're adding 3.2, appointment of a town accountant, and 5.3.1, a list of important dates we didn't want to forget to announce to folks. 1.5, public comment period for 15 minutes. Anybody have anything to say for public comment? I will tell you that as part of the roads plan, if people have questions, I may entertain some questions from the audience during that, because it's of import to all of us, okay? And having no public comment, then 2.1. We're a couple minutes early, but Anna is here. Anna Noyes, our treasurer, is here regarding a ban renewal approval from the board. What's a ban?
It's a bond anticipation note.
See that? I learned something. I knew what I was doing, I just didn't know what it was called. Okay, so what do you need from us?
I need the signatures. We received the documents for the renewal.
Okay.
And
we have a nice interest rate, do we?
yes, we are renewing with the Bank of Newport at 2.19. That was the highest bidder. In the documents, I believe we received all the bids that were taken. So yeah, that was our lowest bidder, because in this case we want the lowest rate.
That's right.
Not the highest rate.
That's not too bad.
Okay, will the selectmen be signing right now?
We need to vote,
Okay.
I move the board sign the ban renewal.
and I'll second that. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're ready to sign.
Great. All the pages are marked for when the selectmen sign. So that should... Here we go. Please let me know if you have any questions.
And then Kathy needs to sign this as well.
Yes, we'll be obtaining Kathy's signature as well. This
just
one does
Kathy.
not
Oh,
have,
okay.
that's just Kathy. Yeah, I just want to cover
Something to do with
the
taxes.
Sorry.
Yeah, something to do with taxes. Is this you that would sign it here,
Yes.
Anna?
Mhm,
Okay, so
yes.
that's all set for you. This is like signing a mortgage.
No, a little bit shorter. Anticipation
Not much.
It's a little bit shorter document. It's much easier to obtain and process at much lower cost, so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
that's me.
Thank you, Anna. And we're a couple minutes early. Is everybody here?
Yep, I think we're all set, right?
Okay. This is James Smith, the Highway Superintendent, and the Beta Group regarding the pavement management program. Jim?
Should be a password written right on it. did make some copies, including the listing of roads by year for people in the audience.
Oh, great. I'll pass it out.
Do you have yours?
I do. I don't have the list, but that's okay.
If folks want to pass those around, there should be some more on the copy coming out too.
Hi,
Hi,
I'm Sue.
Conrad, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
How are you doing? Nice to meet you. There you go. All right. Jim, do you want to do an intro or?
This is Conrad.
All right. So my name is Conrad Ledger from Beta Group. So Beta Group's a full-service engineering firm with one of our core disciplines being GIS and asset management. So the pavement management project and program that we're going to talk about today, we work with over 140 or so communities throughout New England on similar type projects. And then, so what I'm going to talk about today is the initial project and how it led to today and the capital improvement plan that we're going to lay out today. So you can have a background on where some of these decisions came from and what information we use to come up with this program. So I believe you folks on the selection have seen this before, correct? So I'll kind of breeze through the presentation because I'm sure most of the questions and comments are going to come from the program or the capital plan itself. But this will give you an overview of the types of things that we looked at when we're putting together the program and what information we use to come up with the program. So first off, what is pavement management? Pavement management is the practice for planning pavement maintenance to maximize the value of the road network. So one of the things that we do as part of pavement management is we create a database for information on all the roadways here in town, not just certain roadways, to take a look at the roadway network holistically and make sure that we're making the right decisions on where the money should go and where it shouldn't go. So one of the key components of pavement management is performing the right repairs at the right time. So just to give you some information about what that means, this is a pavement deterioration curve. And this is a national standard from Federal Highway Administration. On the left-hand side here is the condition of the roadway. So you can see a roadway in brand new condition starts out on the top here. And then on the bottom is a graphic that shows time in years. So you can see 5, 10, 15, 20 years out. As a pavement's life goes forward, you get to a point here where it very, very significantly drops off in condition. And you have the opportunity to perform pavement maintenance techniques to prolong the life of that roadway so it doesn't hit that cliff as quickly. That allows you to spend less money on good roadways to extend that life so that you don't have to spend the high amount of money on the roadways in the bottom of the curve. So just a little bit of a methodology and why we do some of the things that we do. So some of the techniques that we use on the left-hand side are on roadways that are in fairly good condition. A normal resident wouldn't really think that that roadway needs work. So that's crack sealing, fog sealing, and pothole patching in minor locations. In the middle of that curve, right where you get to kind of the tip there where it falls off in condition, you have surface treatments. So these are generally curb-to-curb treatments that cover the entire roadway, but they're not they don't go into the pavement as much as, say, a structural repair. You're just kind of putting a top coat on the top of it. So some of those include chip sealing, microsurfacing, and hot mix asphalt overlays, thinner overlays. And then you get into the structural repairs where you're talking about spending a significant amount of money on a roadway because it's deteriorated to the point where it needs that repair. You're looking at mill and overlay, reclamation, or reconstruction. So those are a lot of the roadway jobs when you see paving going on out there. That's what you're looking at. You're typically looking at usually a mill and overlay, or a reclamation or a reconstruction is really rebuilding the entire roadway. So those treatments obviously cost significantly more money than the ones on the left-hand side of the screen. So just I'm going to go over kind of the scope of the project that we went through here in town. So this project started back in 2015, and now we're getting into the capital planning phase of it. And and talking about the results of it. So first thing that we did is we took a look at the roadway inventory here in town. So we used state information. I'll talk a little bit about that. Secondly, we went out and did field inspections of all the roadways. Third is we created existing conditions reports and data and information to make decisions moving forward. And then we got into the capital planning and the system maintenance. And the reason those two are green with the arrows on the end is because those are really a yearly process for the town, where you're taking a look at what needs to be done to the roadways, you're adjusting based on the changing conditions out on the roadways themselves. And you do that really on a periodic basis, usually on a yearly basis. So just to give you an overall sense of what is included here in Townsend, roadways are broken into accepted and unaccepted roads, or private and state roads. So that's just a classification. These are all state classifications. So accepted roads are the roads that the town is responsible for maintaining, and they also receive state funding for those roadways as well. So that's 85.82 miles. And that's really what we focused on here as part of this project. So just a little bit about the program that we put here in place in the town for them to use moving forward. It's a non-proprietary program, so there's no cost associated on a yearly basis with this program. Basically, you pay to have the inspections be done, and then the program is installed on the computers here in town, and the town staff has the ability to maintain the program. So it's all Microsoft Access, Microsoft-based tools that are typically found on any computer that you have, any Windows-based computer. So the pavement inspection. So we'll just talk briefly about what the inspectors did when they were out there. So they took a look at every single roadway here in the town. And every roadway was broken up by segments. So typically those segments are broken up from intersection to intersection. The reason we do that is for constructability purposes. Usually when you're going to pave a road, you're going to go from intersection to intersection. On a really long road, you might have a break in the middle of it because you're stopping at a certain point, the paving condition changes or something like that. That is all recorded in this database as well. But that allows us later on to look at each roadway by segment, not just as a whole roadway, because a roadway could be, 4 or 5 miles long, and you don't necessarily care what the whole roadway is. You want to look at individual segments of the roadway. So things that they were looking at when they were out there, they went out and drove every segment of roadway and gave it a condition rating. So the condition rating is formed by looking at the distresses in the roadway. And by distresses, I mean linear cracking, all different types of cracking, potholes, patching, roughness of the roadway. They look at all that, and they look at the severity of the distress, and they look at how much of that distress covers the roadway. And that gives you, by computing that into the program, it gives you a 0 to 100 roadway on each segment of roadway here in town. So a 0 is a roadway that's in terrible condition and almost not passable. A 100 is a roadway that's in brand new condition. So kind of the simple way of explaining it. What that allows us to do, it allows us to put every segment of roadway here in the town into one of these repair categories. Starting at the top, those are the roadways that are in very, very good condition. Those are roadways that don't necessarily need any maintenance done to them. And then the second category there that we call crack seal. So that's, I'll explain a little bit more about the treatments later on, but that's a roadway that's in fairly good condition, but just has some minor cracking on it. Preventative maintenance, those are those curb-to-curb maintenance techniques that need to be done. Those are roadways that are right about at that curve where it's going to drop off. And then you get into your mill and overlay and your reclamation category. So now we have the opportunity and the ability to look at it very, very quickly and see what each segment of roadway here in the town needs done to it from a maintenance category. So now we're going to take a look at the existing conditions of the roadway survey that we performed. So you can see here approximately 80.73 miles of roadway, and the overall condition rating here in the town, if you took all the roadways and you average them together, is a 57.1. And I'll talk to you about, we have some examples in here of what other communities have so you can understand what that means. But what this graph shows is how many miles of roadway fall into each of those categories. So remember, the red and the orange roadways are the roadways that are in tough condition and cost the most money to fix. and then your green, blue, and dark blue are the roadways that are in better condition. So you can see a lot of the mileage of roadway here in the town falls in those orange and red bands, which means it's going to be fairly expensive to fix those roadways. So what we did here is we did some example comparisons of nearby communities. Now, as I said in the beginning, we work with over 140 communities here in New England. I can't exactly display which communities these are, but these are actual ratings of communities nearby. So we're not allowed to release that information unless we get permission from the town in a public forum. So, but this is an example. Town A, you can see, has 40 miles of roadway, and their average road surface rating is a 64. Town B was inspected in the year 2016, has 151 miles, and their roadway ratings are 78. Example C, 2018, the inspections took place, 63 miles of roadway, so kind of comparable to here. Their road surface rating is a 66. And then the last one there was inspected in 2017. They have almost 70 miles of roadway, and their average is 70. So you can see that all of those communities nearby are higher in terms of road surface rating than Townsend right now. So, some examples of what this means. We took some, we like to go out and take representative photos so you can understand what a 20 looks like compared to a 70, just so you can understand kind of what that rating means. So Kendrick Street is a road surface rating of a 20. So you can see it's in pretty tough condition. May Street had a rating of 45, so you can see it's a little bit tough to see in this picture, but you can see a lot of cracking on the roadway, a lot of depressions, and it's not exactly a very smooth ride, but it's at least drivable. Creek Street, you can see it basically just has cracking on it, and you can see a lot of the treatments that were supposed to be done on these roadways have been done. So you can see here a lot of crack seal, that's squiggly lines on the roadways. What that does is it makes sure that the water can't penetrate into the pavement and blow it up in the wintertime, because when the water gets in, it freezes and it expands and it causes potholes. So a lot of the maintenance techniques have been upkept here, but you can see by the overall rating, it's still in kind of tough shape. And then Elysium Street, correct? Did I say that right? Elysium?
Those aren't our streets, those are just representative samples.
Yeah, so these are representative samples here. We didn't do the photos as part of this project, but we put up some representative ones so you can understand what they mean. So the road surface rating here is a 95, so you can see it's a fairly new roadway. So now we're going to talk about this in dollar figures. So you can see that overall rating of a 57.1. You can see the road miles there that fall into each category, and then you can see the estimated cost to do the repairs on those roadways. So you can see the overall value of that is $15.1 million to go out and do all of the maintenance that's needed on the roadways today. So one of the things I want to point out with this is that this is for curb-to-curb improvements only. This is only for the pavement. So when you think about it, there's a lot of other things that go along when you're fixing a roadway. There's drainage, there's sidewalks, there's curbing. None of that is accounted for in these numbers. So just want to kind of point that out. When we did the study, we looked at the roadways themselves, but we did not look at underground infrastructure. Usually you do that as part of when you get into a project-by-project basis and assessing the needs on the particular roadway. Because if you're not going to do work on that roadway, it doesn't really make sense to go through that whole planning process and you know, get into it real deep, because you don't need that information because you're not going to do work on that roadway. So this gives you an overview of what's needed there. We do put some contingencies in there when we're doing the estimates and things like that. So when you get into the minor or major rehab, there's a little bit of numbers in there to assume that some of that work is needed, but it's not necessarily associated for that particular roadway. It's just a general number. So one of the things that we like to point out here is we like to break down the roadway by functional classification. So what functional classification means? It's the state's way of breaking down what a roadway type is like. So what I mean here is we have arterial and collector roadways on the top here. So these are the most traveled roadways here in the town. These are the major thoroughfares that people use for commuting or use the most. So basically it just means that there's higher traffic volumes on those roadways. So you can see here that the arterial roadways are in pretty good shape. You have an 80.42 and 81.46 on the major, the minor arterial and the major collector roadways. And then you start dropping here on the minor collector roadways, 67.84. So you can see there, almost 20 miles of the roadway fall into those categories, and they're in fairly good condition. It's typical of a lot of towns because they spend their state money on those major roadways because those are the roadways that you use the most. And then you can see the local roadways. So these are usually just used by residents getting to and from their houses. You can see that that's where the ratings really start to drop. There's an overall average of a 55, and 46 miles of roadway fall into that category. And then you have your cul-de-sacs and your dead ends. So the reason that these are broken down like this is because it's all based on traffic volumes. So you're going to get much less traffic on a cul-de-sac or a dead end than you are on a minor collector or a major collector. So it just gives us an idea of where the vehicles are traveling and what the conditions are like on those particular roadways that they're traveling most. So very, very typical as towns in the surrounding areas. The roadways that travel the most are in the better shape, and the local roadways and cul-de-sacs and dead ends are in less, I don't know, not good condition. So that gets through kind of the existing conditions and what we did in terms of the pavement management program for the study itself. So the next step is the capital improvement planning and the development of that plan. So things that we looked at as we went through the process with the town representatives is taking a look at targets moving forward and budgets moving forward, refining the repair methods and the unit costs. So we want to make sure what you're actually paying for asphalt or any of these treatments lines up with what the program shows, so that those backlog numbers at 15.1 million is as accurate as we can be from a planning perspective. Prioritization and strategies. So the program does have a built-in prioritization strategy to it. So it's not the end-all be-all by any means, but it helps us and guides us to selecting the roadways that are going to be paved or worked on in the future for maintenance.
What are the criteria that you use for that?
It's traffic volumes. It is the rating of the roadway itself. It is the repair that it's calling out and the life extension of that repair, and then the cost of that repair. So there's a bunch of different things in there. And that, like I said, that's not the end-all be-all for prioritizing their roadways. I don't think there's a single town that we work with that starts at the top and goes to the bottom. You have to look at it from a bunch of different factors. You have to look at it from constructability. Obviously, you don't want to do all the roadways in one part of the town and leave the other part of the town with no roadways done. So there's a lot of different factors in that, and we'll talk about that as we get into the capital plan itself. What laying out a plan like this allows you to do as well is look at your ADA, meaning your curb ramps and sidewalks in this case, to make sure that those are up to speed and where they should be. And then utility coordination. We all know that the last thing you want to do is go in and build a brand new roadway and then have it dug up by a utility. So kind of laying out this plan over a 3 or a 5 year period allows you to do that coordination to try to minimize that happening in the future. And then deterioration rates. So the program has a built-in deterioration factor, which in between inspection processes, it allows us to kind of keep track of what's happening to the roadway and where it's at. It's not a stagnant program. So we'll get into the 3-year plan now. So, and we took a look at, based on the ratings here in the town, usually when you get into the low 60s or high 50s, you're looking at some sort of influx of money that needs to be put into the roadway network. Because with the money that the towns here in Massachusetts get from the state, there's no possible way to catch up on the roadway work that's needed when you're kind of at that number. Typically we see towns looking at that basically when they start getting into the mid-60s. It's just, there's no community out there in Massachusetts that gets enough money from the state to allow them to keep up their roadways, so at some point they have to start putting money in themselves. So we've laid out a plan based on what we came up with in the assessments to start kind of catching up and moving forward here in the town and trying to get ahead. So we laid out this 3-year plan that did include a debt exclusion as well. And we lay it out so this, bottoms of the totals, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, so the bottoms of the totals with the existing money that comes in. So 2019, you're looking at 8.75 miles of roadway being completed. 2020, 8.24 miles of roadway. And 2021, 8.56 miles of roadway.
No, I think that...
No, that's for each one.
No, those are the two different funding sources. So debt exclusion in 2019, you'd see 6.12 miles done at a cost of 1.57.
I saw the higher numbers on the bottom, and I got confused for a second.
Yeah.
So the top numbers, and we'll take a look at why the numbers are so much higher on the top than they are on the bottom. There's different treatments being used in those categories and where the money's being spent. So the 6.12 on top is $1.5 million worth of work. The 8.75 on the bottom is $705,000 being used for that work. So just getting kind of into some of the roadways that we prioritize as part of the program. Ash Street, Beach Street, Highland Street, Maplewood Drive, Seaver Road, South Row Road, Bayberry Hill Road, Clement Road, New Fitchburg Road, Woodland Drive, Worcester Road, Old City Road on the left, and then Wyman Road, Canal Street, Greenville Road, Mason Road, Turnpike Road, Cross Street, and Smith Street on the right, for an estimated planning level cost of $5.16 million. So we do have a board here, if anybody's interested in looking at it and what it looks like, to kind of show the distribution of where where the roadway plan is targeting, and you're free to look at that and ask questions on that as well.
So that's color-coded by year?
Yes, so it's color-coded by year, and also the funding source, correct? So it's going to, basically the front line or the color is for the year, and then the back, you'll see kind of, there's like a shade behind it, and it shows on the back what the funding source would be for that roadway. So let's talk about what a debt exclusion would do here in town for the overall ratings. So we used the actual repair category that we're using on each of these roadways to come up with this analysis and a forecast model moving forward. So you can see here that you're starting out here at that 57.1, and if this plan were to go in place over the next 3 years, you would jump up to a 63.5, I believe it is, right around there. And then moving forward, we forecasted out using different funding scenarios. How much money would it take to stay at a level 63.5 moving forward? How much would it take to gain ground? Or if you went back to your DOT funding that you have right now, then you can see what that would continue to do moving forward. So this is a pretty good model, and it gives you an idea of, okay, if we put this money into the program, what are you actually going to get out of it? And a jump from 57 to a 63.5 is fairly significant in a 3-year period. You're going to get a lot of work done, a lot of road miles done. It is a significant investment, obviously, for the town to do, but it's a good start, and there will be a noticeable improvement on the roadways here in the town if this program is executed. And this gives you a good idea as well, moving forward, to upkeep that work that you've done and to continue moving forward, what it's going to cost from a monetary standpoint moving forward, and what the town should be investing in their road network moving forward.
So the cost on the right, the going forward cost?
Yes.
Is that projected for per year?
Yes, per year moving forward. And that 417 on the bottom there, that's what you currently get for Chapter 90 money from the state.
So, Madam Chair, on that point then, the pavement management plan that the board is putting forward, which in the 5th year would be that $1 million, is what that graphic is meant to show you. So if the bylaw passes and the funding each year is put forward and town meeting supports it, we'd be following that green, the green line.
Joe?
Does the RSR continue to increase if we continue to spend $1 million a year on the road?
Well, based on inflation and things like that, it'll probably kind of level off at some point. But under this funding scenario, and there's a lot of variables in this forecast model, so we did do an analysis in the first 3 years for the actual work that was being done. That's why it's kind of that straight line. And then moving forward, depending on what repairs are performed on a yearly basis. So like, if you do routine maintenance, that model might go up a little bit on 1 year. If you do heavy rehabilitation or reconstruction, obviously you're going to do less mileage. So that might even dip a little bit, but on an average basis, it's meant to show that moving forward, if you spend that $1 million, it's going to continue to help the roadway network.
So things are happening simultaneously in this plan, correct? I mean, we're not just going to take and go after all of those major projects. We're at the same time going to be maintaining the ones that are in good condition so that they'll last longer.
Correct. That's the thing that when we're trying to build these programs for a town, we try to preach the fact that you want to keep your good roadways in good condition. It's kind of one of the biggest theories of pavement management, so that you don't get to the end of the line and all of a sudden you have a whole new list of roadways that you have to reconstruct. You're trying to keep those up and above that drop off on the curve, so that when you get through your program and you're done, you have a lot of good roadways and not just a handful that you had just currently worked on.
So the way that I think about it is I think about it in terms of my driveway. I can't remember when I had it paved, but it was a while ago. It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But you try to make sure you seal coat it. You get your brother to come over and fill in some cracks
Yep.
for you and,
Yep.
and things like that. But it's that regular maintenance that keeps it from deteriorating, especially around here.
Right. And I look at it, I always try to explain it in another way for people who don't understand pavement. It's similar to doing oil changes in your car. So if you buy a brand new car, you're not going to drive it for 10 years and not do any maintenance to it. You're going to do little maintenance along the way so your engine doesn't blow up or your transmission doesn't fall out of the vehicle. You're going to do that maintenance along the way so that you can keep that car in good condition and not have to do a huge repair all at once just because you didn't want to do maintenance.
Any other questions out there?
Maybe I missed it. Could you explain what the difference between reclamation and reconstruction is?
Sure, I can. I didn't explain that directly. So reclamation, the difference is that reclamation, you're using the product that's already there and you're pulverizing it and using it as your new base moving forward. Reconstruction means basically taking all the pavement out and rebuilding the roadway from scratch. So they're very similar in processes. I'd say reclamation is much more common in this area because the roadways are more established and already there in place. And if you already have product in place, it's good to use it. But when there's bad base that's existing or something like that, you might have to dig down and rebuild the whole thing and come back up.
Do you want to keep going?
I think there's only one more slide left, so. Lastly was that last green kind of portion on the bottom of that initial slide showing the project overview is the system maintenance. So as work is completed here in town, the town can go in and update the system to reflect those upgrades to the roadway network and take credit for the road work that's been done. On a yearly basis, we're going to kind of monitor and update the actual costs so we can make sure that we have those planning level costs as accurate as possible. Reassess the roadway network. So there is built-in deterioration in the program itself, but there's a lot of different factors that can contribute to deterioration of roadways. It could have been built in properly in the first place. We could have good winters, bad winters. So that built-in deterioration is really meant to kind of catch some of the deterioration in between inspection processes. So it's very common for towns to reassess their roadway network every 3 to 5 years. And then obviously if there's any new subdivisions or newly accepted roads here in town, we'll want to add those to the database to make sure all the backlog information is recorded. And then also report that information to the state as well so that you can receive more state funding. I'll be happy to take any additional questions.
Hi, how do you determine, some of the roads on here that I'm looking at seem to me that they need some reclamation. And how do you determine just to do the mill and overlay?
Yep. So there's a number of things. So we don't do that as part of the pavement management program itself. The pavement management program is meant for planning and planning level estimates, planning level determinations. So once you've determined what you think or the roadways that you think or you're going to schedule, you'll then go on a project by project basis. You'll do pavement cores and you'll do a little bit more detailed research on that roadway to see what the acceptable repair is. So there are some minimal assumptions there. Usually you can tell based on the condition of the roadway, what repair could be done, but it could change slightly based on some of that investigation you did.
And how did you determine which ones were worse? Because one of the worst roads, and it's not my road, is not slated till the second year.
So you mean in terms of the order that they were done and things like that? So there's a number of factors. One is that cost-benefit value report that we had on there. That helps us to kind of prioritize the roadways. And then also we have to look at constructability purposes as well. So if you look at the map, we tried to kind of not only distribute the roadways so that everybody in town could get some new roadways.
Just know that Bayberry Hill is a mess. It's
Is
like one of the
Bayberry
worst.
Hill one of the
It says second year.
That's
Second
year 2,
year.
yeah.
It has to do with how many people travel the roads too, wasn't that one of the?
That's one of the criteria.
That's
So-
a
so
major cut through.
It is on the plan, and it could be, Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know, are we doing reclamation in year 1?
No.
Yeah,
Well, that
so,
was-
so it
It
could,
says mill and overlay.
mill and
that's mill and overlay, okay. It could have just been constructability-wise, why that particular roadway went to year 2 and not year 1. It was just kind of matching in, creating projects, because if you pick one roadway on one side of town, one roadway on the other side of town.
No, I understand that. I'm just afraid that if that road's not fixed, this may not fly. Because I know a lot of people complain about that road.
This is where,
And I want this to pass because I think we need it. But I think that Bayberry needs to be in the first section.
what I think is really good about going through this process is, other than tweaking some of the criteria, which we could do, we could say, use these variables to designate a
So
priority.
this is not set in stone.
It isn't necessarily, okay? However, that's what most places use.
Right.
Okay, so what is very important before you can commit to something like this is for everyone to agree, I'm not looking at the name of the street, and I'm not looking at the streets, because everybody's going to have different opinions. And if you ask 20 people are going to come out with 20 different roads
I
that they
if
think
anybody
are
drove
first.
Bayberry, they would say.
And I'm not disagreeing.
Am I wrong?
I'm not disagreeing, but on the other hand, you've got to think about it from a project perspective. And if we as a town are not willing to say, okay, this is the plan, and we're going to commit to the plan, then I'll be the first one to vote no. All right? We can't do this in our heads and decide what we think.
No, I understand. I'm just saying, because I want it to pass, and that's a major complaint, that road, that I don't think it's not committing if we move that one to year 1 and take another one and move it to year, but that's just,
But that starts the discussion, is my concern.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
starts the discussion, all right? Either we're going to do it the way that we decide, and this was, Ed Kukula did this years ago and brought it to the town. This is the third assessment we've had. And that was one of his big things, too. And I'm sure I see Jim shaking his head, yeah, okay? Because we can't put our highway people in the position of public opinion.
is our highway department doing this work?
No, but our highway department is going to be doing all of the maintenance on it, and they're the ones that get the phone calls on
Right,
everything, okay? So we need a commitment to this, and we need to,
I agree in a perfect world, that's all I'm saying.
well, you know what?
We're in
If-
Townsend.
If folks If folks feel that way, they're welcome to vote whichever way they're,
Okay,
I
just a suggestion.
but I would hate to throw the baby away with the bathwater.
I don't disagree, I'm just,
I understand, Lisa, I understand.
Hey, Madam Chair, quick.
Yes,
add to that.
please.
You have to keep in mind, too, that this is a draft plan right now.
Okay.
So the one thing, that I'm working with another community, multiple communities on the South Shore as well, on similar type projects where they've gotten bonds. And the folks at top say, they want to make sure that the roadways that were in the initial plan get done. Okay? And the years could change because of the fact that, you could assess a roadway and you look at it and you say, okay, this one's in here for mill and overlay. Oh, well, we realize that this one, if we catch it, then we can actually get it into
Save
mill and
it, yeah.
overlay. And so really, you don't want to get into that, that defined, definitive, done
right,
plan.
no, well, that's what I'm saying, so this is not set in stone.
No.
Things will,
Things could shift around
Right,
slightly.
okay.
So the idea is to make sure that, the commitment is there, the public knows what roadways are being targeted and why they're being targeted, and then the years could shift slightly as the plan goes on. Because you could find out that, the roadway that you're particularly talking about, it could have a utility project on that road next year.
Right.
Which would mean that you wouldn't want to pave it until the following year.
Right.
So that roadway could switch to the following year, and then you do that repair on it. So it's just an example of how the roadways could shift slightly.
Yep.
But you want to understand what roadways are being done as part of the money that you're going to kind of commit to this.
And doesn't the more detailed assessment play a part in that too?
Sure.
If we could use Bayberry Hill as an example, the sides keep falling apart, okay? It's a big hill. What does drainage have to do with that?
Sure.
Okay? All of that is going to play a part in it, but that takes that second level of assessment that needs to happen too. If it ends up, it could be one of those roads that end up needing some of that contingency money that we've put aside.
Exactly.
Because this is, like you said, general overview. But what I don't want to get into is having folks look at the list and say, my road's not on there, therefore I'm not voting on it. I mean...
no, I agree with that.
Yeah, I know you do.
I just know that all over, everybody talks it, and I've driven it, and it's...
I try to avoid it,
There's like
actually.
huge cavities in it, you're like dodging from losing your car in it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the reason we haven't gotten to that level of detail on the assessments is because obviously doing those types of assessments, going out and taking tours and things like that costs money.
Right.
So you don't want to do that unless you have a commitment from the
Exactly.
town that they
No, I
want to spend the money
understand.
on the roadways, so. Good.
I was wondering, what criteria does the state use to determine how much money each town gets for road repair?
Sure. They use road miles. The number of road miles is the biggest factor in it. So I believe that equation, I don't know the exact equation, but I believe it's about 60% of the equation falls under road miles. And then it uses number of residents within the town and the number of employees in the town. So there's been talks in the state that they're going to change, they could tweak that equation in the near future, but right now, that's how it stands.
Yeah, this year especially, there is quite a bit of conversation going on at the legislature, talking
Sure, what
about more money, but it's not going to be this much.
Right.
If we get more, it might be enough to do another road.
And it's not going to be this year either.
And
Right.
no, so, but there is a lot of discussion. Infrastructure is a topic, not only, well, if you watch the news, just the other day, they were talking about it. I think, at the federal level, they're talking about that being on their agenda for this year to discuss, so,
But where that money would come to bear fruit for us is the graph that shows if you spend the $1 million. That contemplates using Chapter 90 at our current rates and getting to the point after the fifth year of $500,000 out of excise tax, local money, and $250 out of the free cash. So if that 417, Chapter 90, grows in a year or two,
it's a bonus.
then that green line, maybe it doesn't change that markedly, but those dips that we may experience in it, maybe they flatten out a little bit.
The
Just more money on
you
the
guys-
table.
that you folks can get from the state, then obviously the more it's going to help. But there has been, those discussions have been going on. I know the Chapter 90 right now is set at a $200 million level, and it has been for, I believe, the past 10-plus years. So ever since I've been doing pavement management, they've been talking about raising it to $300 million, and it hasn't happened yet. So it's been discussed, but infrastructure keeps popping up more and more, as you said. So it could potentially happen at some point, but again, it's not going to be enough to overtake the downfalls here right now.
So if the town approves this year, when do you expect the work to start, and when do you expect it to finish? How many years exactly will it take?
I don't know the exact answer here, but I can tell you from other towns that I've worked with and how that has worked. Typically, like say for this year, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you guys have gotten that far with the process, but in other towns I work with, typically they'll have their usual paving program in place already, and they might do some of that preventative maintenance in addition to their existing program, and then the following spring is where it really ramps up and you start, because it takes a little while to get organized, it takes a little while, there's existing contracts here in town right now, but there may need to be additional oversight of the projects as well, or any design work that goes along with it, so it could take a little bit of time to ramp up, but I would say by the spring of next year, you'd see it kind of in full flow.
And how many years do you just project that it will take to get all?
This is a 3-year program. Yep.
Somebody chose to be alive before.
Yeah, so
Sometimes projects seem to last a long time.
Well, that doesn't mean that we're not going to keep doing the roads after 3 years, but
We need to.
it's like we need to get over this hump. We really do. We need to say, and admit to ourselves that we've been kicking this can down the road for a very long time, and it's time to start catching up. It's just like a house. It's like anything else that we deal with at home. If you neglect it for too long, it's going to cost you an awful lot more to fix it when the time comes. So, kick the can, but it's not going to make it go away.
When you get to the back page,
Yeah, that's the one that we didn't get.
okay, it's in a couple of packets that I made, and I think you had it in your original
The
one.
last one.
It actually will show for the totals for this 3-year plan, contemplating a debt exclusion of 5.1 million, and then the pavement management plan that we've talked about that we're rolling out the bylaw for. It'll be 7.695 million, so about $8 million program for 3 years. The part I wanted to draw your attention to is the contingency that was mentioned is $660,000 and some change. So that's being carried as contingency. So if you do some core work and you find out that it's not mill and overlay, it's reclamation, or you do some engineering, you find out that there are drainage issues that need to be addressed, that's buried there. That's where that can be covered. Additionally, this model was carrying $330,000 for police. What Jim was able to demonstrate is that the bids that we currently have, which this is now based on, these are live bids, have the police built into it already. So that 330 that we're carrying for police rolls into contingency. So you've basically got $1 million contingency from which those things that pop up can get handled, but also we've talked with the folks at Beta about your concern about having oversight.
Most
So
definitely.
they actually do, whether they would be the guys or not, their outfit does do, owners, on-site management. So,
So you have your engineers that,
we have a whole construction phase division.
Okay.
And we're doing that in multiple towns right now. One of the towns that we're doing this type of project with, a debt exclusion or a bond, we're managing that project on the South Shore right now. So we do that a lot.
yeah, I mean, I think that's extremely important. You're spending that kind of money, you have to have good oversight, people who really, are looking out for our interests and our money. Otherwise, I wouldn't support it, so
So $1 million of the 7.7
that's good.
is contingency right now.
And you never know when you go out and look at a road closely, when an engineer goes out and says, this is what it needs, it could bring it to the top, or it could push it down more, because we're not ready to do it, so.
Exactly.
Okay. Any other questions?
This report is going to go up online tonight. So it'll be the full color version of this document, and then the backup document that shows the roads, and the map that shows the total scope of the 3 years of work by color, and each color representing a year. And then, as you said, the shadowing on it will dictate whether that is pavement management plan money or the debt exclusion if it's to pass.
Correct.
Just one other question. Have there been any innovations at all in road construction material?
Absolutely, there's been plenty. So, some of the, a lot of the surface treatments that are done now weren't necessarily as widespread in the past. So, even the materials of, say, the crack sealing, for instance, and the flexibility of that material now is much better than it was even 5-10 years ago. And it's making those treatments last longer, and it's making it so, you're not failing as quickly on those roadways. The paving industry has come a long way as well, so there's been a lot of testing that goes on. Now, one of the state specs is what's called super pave. And that's, it's actually mandatory if you use Mass DOT money now, is this what's called the super pave spec. So it just adds a lot of quality control to the process of creating the mixed designs and things like that. So it definitely, hopefully will lead to more life extensions of the roadways moving forward. I know, the roadways that were paved 5 to 10 years ago, there were a lot of issues with some of the pavement that was going on, some of the materials that were being used, and a lot of those roadways fell apart a lot quicker than they had in the past. So the state kind of redid the whole spec that was behind it. And since then, we've seen greater life expectancies of some of that pavement. So we at Beta, we go to conferences all the time trying to find out what the new technologies are, where they are in different parts of the country and what's being used where and under what conditions. And then we hope to kind of distribute that information to the towns that we work with and let them make the decisions on what products they want to use and what they're interested in.
Can you describe chip sealing?
Chip seal. All right, so chip seal is a very, very cost-effective treatment. It leaves behind, the pros of it are it's very flexible. You can pretty much use it anywhere, and on some of them, they actually basically waterproof the roadway. So it's very, very, so if you've ever seen when they're paving a roadway, they put down a spray emulsion, and it's a very, very heavy coat of spray emulsion, basically little chips of rocks go on top of it. And a roller comes behind it and rolls the rocks in. So it's very, very quick, it's very, very easy to do, and it lasts a long time, especially in towns like this where it's a little more rural and it's, the roadways are long and you can kind of do that. The only downside to it is that it leaves behind like a little bit of a rougher texture. So it's not your black, pavement that you'd see on like an arterial roadway. It's more of a rougher surface. You really don't notice it when you're in a car. But if you were to drive a bike on it or ride rollerblades on it, it would be a little bit more difficult to do those types of things. So that's why in a rural type setting where you're on a long country road or something like that, it's fantastic. If you're in a city and you're riding, bicycles and commuter bikes on it and things like that, it wouldn't be used. So you would use a different treatment.
Does it supply more traction then?
I can't talk to the exact traction numbers because I believe it does, but I don't want to say definitely it does. But it's just, it's different than your conventional pavement. So it's a little bit, when you're driving on it at higher speeds, it's a little bit louder on the tire noise. But it's very, very cost effective. Comparison-wise, you're looking at $4.80 a square yard in terms of cost, where conventional mill and overlay is somewhere in between $12 and $16. So, and you're getting, if you put it on the right roadway at the right time, you're getting 8 to 10 years out of it, whereas pavement, you're getting 10 to 15. So the cost benefit is there to use those types of products. So that's a lot of the calculations that we go through when we put together a program, when we decide on which roadways are getting which treatments. We look at those cost benefit value equations and we come up with, okay, if this is going to extend the roadway this amount of time and this is going to extend the roadway this amount of time, we compare the costs, and then we do that calculation, we make our opinions off of that.
A gentleman that was here at the last meeting when we talked about it was concerned that if we make his road better, people are going to go too fast on it. Because it's making them, well, I mean,
like those potholes.
that's a thought. The potholes are slowing them down.
not-
So what I'm thinking is, well, if it's a little rougher for some of those roads, then they're going to have to slow down a little bit.
Sure, yeah, no, and it's not, I heard some people laugh at that, it's not an uncommon thing when you live on one of those types of roadways, so I hear that a lot. So, you know, some communities get into, after they pave the roadway, they get into traffic calming and signage remedies and things like that they have to do on some of these roadways because people start speeding down them. So it is something to be aware of and be cognizant of, but there are ways to remedy those things moving forward, so.
Speed bumps.
No.
Highland Street needs it.
Yeah,
Highland Street
well,
Road is
like-
a mess now, and they still speed up and down.
well, like he said, there's other ways to solve those problems, but, I mean, I think we have to think about all of those too. I mean, the thing that I think about, to be honest with you, is when we bought our house 40-some-odd years ago, we were told, and rightfully, that this is the biggest investment you're probably going to ever make, and that you should make it based on your resale value, or your potential resale value. And if the roads look nice, and the roads are easy to travel, then if I decide I want to sell my house, it's going to be worth a little bit more than maybe it is today. And you know, for that gentleman who was concerned about his, you know, the neighboring road, I think the people that live on there would be thinking more in terms of resale value for their homes as well. So,
Sure, you talk about curb appeal. Curb appeal is a big part of selling your home. And
exactly.
you have a good roadway in front of your house, it adds to the curb appeal.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to help if it's all falling apart.
So is there any thoughts about putting in more sidewalks,
Or just curbs.
Well,
especially like down 119?
actually, we just got through asking, the state was asking what kind of goodies would we like on our wish list, not that anything's guaranteed, and one of the things that we talked about was sidewalks, like at least from the harbor to the high school.
Yes.
You know, that would be good.
Down at, like, where the Spalding School is, I mean, no matter what, all that sand just washes in the road. Just curbs would make it look neat and nice. Right now you go down and it's like, oh.
But I think, you know, curbing and drainage and all of that are part of what needs to be looked at from an engineering standpoint, too.
Yep.
You
It's
know?
also a state road.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
that's a
state road.
state road. Forget it. Ain't happening. We don't have any say in that one.
Anything else?
Thank you.
One other thing, Jim. How's this hit the pocketbook?
Yes. If the debt exclusion were to pass, if a $5.1 million debt exclusion at 2.5%, and you saw we just did a ban earlier today at 2.1, but I've got it plugged in at 2.5, a bond for 10 years. To pay that for a 10-year period, you would have, for a home that's valued at, I'll go to $200,000. $200,000 value home would see an increase of $29.56 quarterly. So, I mean, there's...
$10 a month.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody has the value of their home, they let me know, I can put it right into the spreadsheet, and we'll spit it out, you know, to them specifically. So $100,000
houses in Townsend.
I was gonna say, it
Is that
started
per
at 300.
thousand or 100?
I'm sorry?
Is that per thousand?
That's per quarter on the year.
Right.
$200,000 house.
On a
$200,000.
$200,000 house.
Right,
I don't have very many
250.
$200,000 houses.
Yeah, so
So on 300, what would it be?
300 would be 1478 times 3. So, I'm not doing that.
45.
44 and change a quarter.
it's worth it, good roads.
$44 a quarter.
That's more realistic
Yeah.
houses.
I mean, it gives you a ballpark anyway. Okay?
It's good piece.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
34. Nice job, guys, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dawn, question?
No, I just got a text from a couple of people that on TV, all they're getting is a voice.
Yes, I know about it. I've tried to fix it and I can't. I don't know what the problem is. I'm recording it anyway.
Can we call Boston?
What are they
I've already notified him.
Okay.
they're getting what done, just the voice, not the,
Just the voice and the picture.
When did that start?
And it's 6:58.
Okay, so we got the presentation in at least?
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. 221, update for engineering services for pavement management. We talked a little bit about it.
Yep. So we have, in this plan, there's, as I said, the equivalent of $1 million in contingency. So from that, we would solicit bids for pavement management oversight.
Okay.
And whether it be the folks from Beta or any others out there that do it, the answer is that the money is there in the budget as contemplated.
Okay, one other question, thinking about hitting, no pun intended, but hitting the road running, and this is more for Jim, I think, too. If this were to be approved for July 1, that would mean that for the rest of the season, at least would be able to go out and do some of the smaller repairs that are on the list.
Yep.
Okay, great.
The contractor's gonna be getting a hold of me, and he knows what we're doing with the process.
Because as much as we can get done
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's looking to schedule.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
thank you. 2.3, Finance Committee regarding recommendations and consideration of town meeting warrant articles. Jim, you want to lead that, please?
Yes. So, I think there's only been one change in the warrant since I last met with you as the select board, and it came as a suggestion from the Finance Committee. And they asked that we group the pavement management articles. You might remember that it was, the debt exclusion first, and then there was a funding one, and then there was the bylaw. There was a suggestion that people would feel better perhaps if you do the bylaw first to show the commitment, then the local funding to show that commitment, and then the debt exclusion be the final
Okay
piece.
with me.
So it's been restructured that way. So going through, starting at the special. The first is the snow and ice deficit.
I don't have pages on mine. Okay, where are we?
Well, you should have pages on that. Right in the middle and the bottom.
Oh, now I see it. Give me a page.
43.
Thank you. Page 43.
Okay, so you have, the first article in the special is snow and ice deficit, usual and customary. Jimmy, actually, do you know what the most updated is after your last warrant?
120?
Yeah, it's expected to come in less than this, like the 150 was.
30,000
Yeah,
plus.
yeah, so probably be closer to the 120 mark once the final payments are processed.
Okay.
So do you want to take each one with a yay or an A, and I'll mark them as we go?
I'm okay.
Yep.
Finance Committee? Yeah. Okay, so that's yes, yes. And the next Article 2 is going to be supplementing the fiscal 19 legal budget. We don't yet have that number. We've got, I think, 3 months left, and we're out of budget right now. So the expectation is going to be probably around 20, perhaps a little bit more. Right now, I've got 30 in the spreadsheet on available funds marked off for it, but until we know what it is, I didn't want to even hazard to put a number in there. It's going to need to be done, however.
Yes, well, we're committed to it. We have to pay what we have to pay. So what, you plugging in, and this is free cash?
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Finance Committee?
Well, we can't until there's a figure.
Okay. So it's no for lack of information.
Right.
Okay. Excellent. Next is Article 3, which is $9,500 line painting on public ways for public safety purposes.
Okay.
Selectmen, yes. Finance Committee?
And that's primarily fog lines, right,
Yep.
Jimmy?
Thank you. Center lines.
Finance, yes.
Yes. Center lines, fog lines, maintain. Crosswalks.
Is it a crosswalks too?
Crosswalks as well, yeah.
Okay,
All line painting.
all right.
Okay. Article 4, $9,500 for Council on Aging, purchasing office equipment and furnishings.
Yes.
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 Excellent. Article 5, $10,000 for purpose of removal of woody debris from the recycling center.
Still not sure how I feel about that one.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm different about it, but it's gotta be approved.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Selectmen, yes.
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 Finance Committee, yes. And that's the special. We then get to the annual. And the first is usual and customary, appointing any town officers. Again,
We don't usually vote on
No.
the non-money things.
no, the bylaw one sometimes.
Yeah,
But
with the
this is
bylaw.
usual and
Yeah,
customary, so
okay.
it's going to get done
All right.
anyway. Article 2, reports of any committees, boards, or commissions, so you won't know unless you hear from them. Article 3, West Townsend residents for the James H. Tucker Fund. Again, usual and customary. Article 4 is the revolving account article. This is the same as it's been over the last several years with one exception, and that exception is in number 2, recreation programs, under the use of funds. It used to just be for operating, and the auditors have recommended that it be operating and capital associated with recreation programs, and the amount be increased that they're able to spend up to.
So question on what kind of capital? Give me an example of capital.
Could be capital on the building. It could be capital on the grant program that they came in and made a presentation on at your last meeting.
Is that in here?
It is not. They took that off.
Okay.
Yeah, that would have appeared in the special, but they took it off. They're not seeking any funding from the town meeting for the purpose of that exercise park. Okay, so Selectmen, yes?
Yeah.
Finance, yes? Revolvings? And then you get to the operating budget. This year, it's presented a little differently. Last year, we had the omnibus version, which was the salary and expense by department, and then we had the full detailed line item budget, and people were toggling back and forth between the both of them, and didn't seem to like that as much, so you gave direction, as is your prerogative, to have it done as the total line-by-line budget. So what you see in order here is the article that lists the total amount of the budget, lists the other available funds that need to be specifically called out as a part of the vote, and then lists the functional segments. So the budget is broken into general government, public safety, education, streets and highways, solid waste, human services, culture and recreation, debt service, and insurances, and then the grand total. Actually, those two grand totals need to be matched again. In this budget, that number is, you'll note that the number in the text in Article 5, the very top of the page, and the number at the bottom of the page don't line up. Today, I got a call from, Stacy and I talked from the library, and there was a number that wasn't picked up in one of her spreadsheets, so that's been carried forward now, so that changed the bottom line. And additionally, the fire chief caught the fact that his non-union call employees did not have a 2% worked into theirs. So that was roughly $7,200, and I think library was roughly $5, a little under $5 maybe. So there was a little bit of shifting around that went on in that regard.
And that had to do with like applying the COLA to...
Correct, to those
all
people.
of the people
Yep.
that were...
Yeah, the library issue was on the, I forget, was it wish, what was it, wish
Yeah,
list? Or?
it was just like there was many things and one number wasn't carried over all the way through all the spreadsheets, so.
So it had to do with the increased hours for the...
The part-time staff.
For the part-time
We
staff.
did present them at the meeting to you.
Right, it
but
was
then
talked
just
about,
wasn't-
it was agreed
talked
to.
about, Yeah, and it just wasn't carried all the way through.
So now it's accounted for.
Okay, so that's why we're...
Right, so
Adjusted.
those two numbers will be made to reconcile.
I'm good. Good with the budget. How's the
Finance
finance committee?
No.
What's
We
the...
still have 4 that are open, that we need
Which
more
4?
information. MIS, library, the flag committee, and the solar.
MIS, library,
Flag committee and solar.
What's sold?
That was another article.
Oh, yeah, that's not the budget.
okay,
No.
that's not part... All right, so what's your question on library? Because
I'm
library trustees
Val
here.
Goodrich, I'm the chair of the library trustees, and we didn't receive any questions after the last meeting, and so
I sent the memo to the chair.
that was the Valerie_Goodrich at Hotmail.
Yes.
I didn't receive any email
Yeah,
notification.
asking to meet with us, and I didn't hear anything back, so.
We didn't, none of us, because there's 5 of us on the trustees, and
Yeah.
none of us received, I checked my junk mail and everything.
Maybe you have the wrong email address.
But I'm here, I'm happy to
I got
answer
it.
any questions. I have
Yeah.
the budget up, whatever questions you have, we'd
Yeah.
be happy to respond.
What were your questions? Maybe we can just resolve it now.
Yeah, well, that's what I was hoping.
Yeah, and I'm happy to, because when we found out there might be questions, we came today, so.
Yeah, we had a question on the 14%, 14.6% for the director. We felt that we could rearrange that.
For 3 years?
Because the contract is supposed to be for 3 years.
Yep, the contract is up for renewal starting the fiscal year July 1st, so we're in the process of negotiating that, and so we're set to have that increase, and then proposed is 3% for the 2 years after it. So that's even the step to get it over 3 years. That was our first step to where we would have to be to hire someone into that position, essentially.
To do what, I'm sorry?
So we're just trying to get to that position to the point where we're not so far off what other library directors with similar responsibilities would do, that if we were to have to hire someone, as library trustees, we have to be responsible if a staffing change happened, that the library services would stay the same. At the current rate, those services would change. We have now an endowment that has to be worked with, and other things that require a level of experience that has changed in the past 10 years since that position was kind of hired for, so.
Well, we would take
But I would
into
happy to.
consideration, because when it was first done, it said to bring it up to market.
Relatively, you know.
Right, bring it up to market. However, we also did research for the surrounding towns and found that it was still high.
Can I ask what
So,
towns?
what was it, Air, Groton, and Lunenburg? Did we-
So I mean, I can pull up the
Joe
numbers,
had
I have the, so we work with the Mass Bureau of Library Commissioners, and they actually sent me, before we did the presentation, they sent me all the data for last year's information, that's what I go with. And so it's under Lunenburg, about 20,000 under Groton, significantly under Air, I know, too. And then what we're also looking at is we're looking at not just surrounding towns, but also circulation. So for the amount of traffic that this library gets, it's heavily used for the size town we have. It's just, we don't have a lot of community resources like that, so people just, we really use it. So we're looking at how much material is going through the library. So then we also compare it to towns that have similar circulations and try to say, a library director that manages this size organization, what are they getting to? So that's kind of where we base that on. And we're looking
Also,
to
Tom,
put it in, yeah.
Also, we took in consideration of Townsend.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah, we want to.
So that we're not a big town.
No.
And we don't have any more industry that's coming in that we can draw from. We have to get creative on how to get more revenue in the town, because we are a small town, and we can't keep up with the Joneses.
No,
but hold on.
Crazy.
Hold on,
Yes.
hold on a second, okay? I don't think it's fair to ask to tell the library we need more revenue. That's a town issue. That, it really,
Right.
it's not.
But it's for everybody. It's
Yeah,
not just the
but-
library.
But it's
I
not, it's
understand.
not the subject. The subject is, you know, what do you have a problem with the library budget? And what would you recommend? I mean, basically, that's,
We're recommending 773.
That's more than what I have in. our
No, she's saying 7%,
Oh,
7%, 3%.
I mean, that's, you know, I could bring that back to the library board of trustees and say that was a recommendation. We're interested with this position, and we're saying this is what we think we need to get in order to, you know, really have a position that we, if we had to go out and hire for, that we wouldn't have to come back to the town or pull from other areas in the library, so.
Jim?
This is not unlike what the Finance Committee and the Select Board jointly agreed to do with the accountant position.
that's right.
That was a big bump. That was a $10,000 bump in that position, and it was because what Valerie's suggesting could happen, did happen. You know, we found ourselves in a position where we're budgeting for X dollars, and the market was 10 grand more.
And we weren't getting applicants.
So everybody agreed, you know, we need to do the right
I
thing.
mean, if
and
that
put the money
happens in the
behind it.
library,
My only issue here right now is we've been over this
I
for the
know,
better part of the
I
month,
know.
and now we're still asking questions about it. I have a problem with that, and I don't want to waste time tonight doing that. I find this very frustrating that we're going over this
well,
again.
then I think the only thing that we can do is the selectmen as a whole, I don't want to speak for you, as a whole, I am fine with the budget as it stands. Okay, so the selectmen are approving it, okay? Is the finance committee not approving the budget because of these items?
We have a meeting tonight after this meeting, after this session. We're going to go over this. I will give you either before I leave or email you as soon as I get home what we decide.
Excellent.
And I'm happy to come, if you guys would like me to discuss any of this. That's not a problem.
That fast forwards us to page 85, Article 6, which is to fix the compensation of elected officers of the town as provided by Mass General Law. This specifically is in the budget that was just voted. We would then need to go here and say the salary that was just set for the town clerk in the overall budget needs to specifically be voted, because that's the one elected full-time position.
Good.
So selectmen are okay with that?
Yes.
Finance committee? Okay. Then we have water enterprise budget. This one is a standalone article because it's an enterprise fund, so it's not a department from a financial perspective that is married up with the general fund budgets. Even though it's a department of the town, it is a separate financial account. So it stands as its own article. You'll see this one is $1,087,583 to operate the department, and the intermunicipal chargeback of $280,935. And then there is a line item budget breakdown. I did get the columns to show on the top now, Sue, too.
Okay.
You had asked that I get that taken care of, so. This is the water department article. There are items that are being requested by the water department. In the other budgets where there weren't elected boards involved, I had discretion to have a TA recommended column that might be different. That doesn't exist here. The elected board put forth a budget. I've carried that budget exactly as they've submitted it. I've made notes under the notes column on things that obviously would require to be negotiated by the union if the position is in the union. That if it's an allowable expense under the law or not. So the numbers are carried just as they've asked, but there are some notes on the right-hand column.
Oh. Okay, so for example, on the second one, wages, operating staff, union.
Yep.
They're asking for a 12% increase.
Correct.
how can they ask for a 12% increase for something that's a union
All of the,
before the union contract gets negotiated?
not unlike what we've done with all of the other ones. The other ones
Okay,
we're
so
carrying,
they're putting 12% as the high side.
and they're going to, the employees that are affected by that will come to the table with
I want 12%.
their rationale for their union. When they meet as a union body and they determine what their proposals are going to be, they want to be able to say, we think that the market says it should be this many dollars higher. And then presumably, if the union body itself agrees, that will then appear as a proposal before you. This
Okay.
would allow it to be funded. My only point is, if it gets funded, that's great, but just like all of the other things that say COLA in the general budget, the money is there, but it doesn't go into
doesn't.
somebody's paycheck unless it's
Okay,
negotiated.
all right, good. So the money is put aside.
Yeah, it's
For
budgeted, but just can't,
negotiations.
the accountant couldn't process it unless a contract allowed it.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
So, Selectmen,
I'm fine.
Finance Committee? Want to wait on all yours until after? No. Andrea?
No.
Oh, you're good on this one? Okay. Excellent. Next, you'll see capital, the capital plan. So Capital Planning Committee has submitted their plan for fiscal '20. That's Article 9. It is, the chart shows recreation roof, $50,000 from cap stabilization fund, roadway paving and maintenance, $250 free cash, roadway paving maintenance, $50,000 excise revenue, and year 2 of the Mark Cruiser leases contain $60,000 contained within the operating budget. HVAC upgrade replacement for police, $25,000 from cap stabilization. Replace the lobby door key control upgrades for the police, $30,000, that's cap stabilization. And then the final year of the $175,000 joint fire police radio upgrade replacement, $175,000 out of cap stabilization. And lastly, the water department seeking and being approved for a 1-ton dump truck with plow, $50,000 from water department retained earnings. So the total capital plan is $690,000.
Okay, can I jump down to 231, please, on our agenda?
Yes. Good idea.
Because
Technicalities.
technicality, before this can be put in here and acted on in terms of recommendation, we need to take a vote on the capital plan from a selectman's standpoint. So I would entertain a motion,
I move to accept and recommend the plan as presented.
and I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so that official thing is done.
Okay. So any questions, Finance Committee, on capital plan?
No.
You guys good with it?
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Next we have the pavement management articles. The first is a bylaw. So the bylaw, I think we've talked about quite a bit. It basically is a commitment being made by the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the Town Administrator each year to fund a pavement management program. It starts out with all the Chapter 90 money in year 1, $250 from free cash and $50 in excise. That was just voted in the article and capital plan we just handled. And each year that an additional $50,000 from excise until such time as it hits the $250,000 mark. That gets us to that $1 million that we saw on the pavement management plan chart that showed that line gaining ground on the road surface rating. So this is in the form of a bylaw. Obviously, town meeting ultimately would decide whether they agree to fund it or not, but this is a commitment from these 3 parties that they will put it forward every year.
Okay.
Selectmen are good?
Andrea?
We were good with this, but I still have a question.
Sure.
If we can't make it, what happens?
I'm sorry?
If we can't make it, if we can't come up in some year with the amounts that are stated in the bylaw, what then happens?
Well, it depends. The reason for this is to state...
Oh, I understand that, but making a specific commitment to amount
Right.
it seems to me that like, for example, excise tax, one year, we didn't expect it, the bottom just fell out of excise, and it was a terrible mess.
Sure.
So, stating specific amounts, doesn't load onus,
This doesn't
open us up
bind
to a
us.
lot more trouble?
This doesn't bind us. This is a commitment.
It's a bylaw, it binds us. Certainly it does.
Yeah, I mean, there can be language added that says, subject to availability of funds.
Okay.
Gives you that out, and that's pretty standard.
That'd be great.
That's pretty standard language. I mean, because to your point, Sue, this is everybody's commitment. You know, if all things are considered, this is what we're committing to do.
Well, see, I was afraid of what had happened if we got it and had to meet specific sums every time. Maybe we'd have to make cuts in departments, and that would be terrible.
Think about capital plan, okay? We decided a long time ago that we were going to put a minimum of $200,000 aside for the capital plan.
But it was never put into a bylaw.
No.
It was just an
this isn't-
understanding. And understandings, unwritten understandings particularly, mean absolutely nothing.
Have that language and be all set.
I mean,
Taylor on the
it
end.
really isn't binding. It's not binding.
And our other bylaws aren't binding either?
I believe it is binding if it's in a bylaw.
If it's a
but if you
bylaw,
put
it's
that wording
binding.
in there,
Yeah.
then I think you're in a safe bet.
Well, you're in a safe bet. I just don't want to come back here next year and hear that, oh, we don't have the money to finish doing this plan.
That's why I think you gotta put that language in there.
You don't want to give the easy out.
You don't want to have to lay off firefighters or policemen to meet a bylaw.
I'm for the bylaw. Where are you?
I'm good.
We're yes. What do you guys?
With the change, I'm all for it.
So with an amendment for that phrase, so I'll make that note.
Thank you.
Excellent. Then we get to 11, and 11 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate from available funds in the treasury, specifically local receipts, auto excise, the sum of $50,000, to further supplement the town's fiscal year 20 allocation of Chapter 90 paving funds from the Commonwealth in the amount of $415,176, and the sum of $250,000 as previously voted as part of the fiscal 20 capital plan.
I'm okay.
Each article? Are we going over each article?
This wasn't in there before, was it?
This is so it can be written in there with our official recommendations.
Remember it this way.
Okay.
That's all.
You guys all set with that one?
Finance Committee?
Okay. And then Article 12 is the debt exclusion. Article 12 is to see if the town will borrow the sum of $5 million. This would be 5.1 with the revised presentation we just had tonight, to fund a townwide pavement management plan and for the payment of all of the costs incidental and related thereto, and that the appropriation, the treasurer, with approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow, but it's contingent upon a debt exclusion vote at the ballot.
So you understand that that means that this goes to a special election,
Correct.
okay? Within how many days, Ken, did we say? 60?
35 days.
35 is the soonest,
Is
but
the-
you
yeah.
can't go longer than 65, I think.
I think it's...
90.
90.
Yeah, okay.
June 18th tentatively.
Yeah.
Ever think about having it on a Saturday?
I'm open to that.
Just about,
I'm open to that. If it's more convenient for folks.
yeah.
Well, and people wander around more on Saturday, and they're just, just a reminder that you can get
Come back
a
to
bit of
us.
turnout.
That's fine.
So selectmen are okay on this, finance committee?
Yes.
I mean, that's a discussion for a different day, but.
Then we get into 13. Article 13. Article 13 is to see if the town will vote to borrow or transfer from available funds the sum of $200,000 for the purpose of funding the redesign, reconstruction, and all other associated costs related to the Greenville Road Bridge at Walker Brook.
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. Next, we see Water Enterprise, the sum of $100,000 to pay down the bond anticipation note for the Main Street Water Main Replacement Project.
Yes.
And then we have cemetery receipts for $9,500 for the purchase of cemetery equipment.
Yep.
Okay.
And then we see, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Assessors to negotiate and enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement or pilot agreement between Lockbrook Solar, a limited liability company, or its assigned, and the town of Townsend for personal property tax purposes related to a 1.4 megawatt ground-mounted solar array to be located at 22 West Meadow Road.
Yes.
That's the soul.
Finance Committee on that one?
Finance Committee, you had a question on solar?
Yeah. I think that was Joe, wasn't it?
It's a recommendation from the assessors to be able to tax them properly.
Does that set a particular percentage for X number of years, or is that just?
It sets a dollar amount with an escalator for a 20-year period.
Oh, was it, okay.
Yep. Finance Committee?
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
We okay with that?
Then we have the article seeking to fund $35,000 for the purpose.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jim.
Okay. $35,000 for funding a feasibility study to create affordable housing on Dudley Road. This is a Housing Authority article. Looking to engage a consultant to conduct a study to determine the feasibility of utilizing a parcel of land on Dudley Road adjacent to Atwood and Townsend Woods for the purpose of creating additional affordable housing in Townsend.
Yes.
Is that what
That has to go to court and have,
Yeah.
this doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right, part of the study would be, is that parcel even able to be?
But the vote that we had at the last town meeting, wasn't that to put that in town council's hands, basically? They still have to go to court to say if it's even possible, okay? But this, at the same time, gives them the ability to do a feasibility study on it as well.
Finance? Okay. And next is $5,000 for the town's 300th anniversary celebration. Last year was the first year of it, and they're just looking to do a little bit each year for a while until they get up and running.
Yes.
Okay, and then we have $20,000 for the assessor's periodic inspections and property data verification.
Yes.
Next, we see...
We're assuming that if we hear nothing, that it's a yes.
I'm hearing him say
You're
yes.
hearing her? Okay.
Yeah.
Hearing him.
He's hearing it.
He's hearing
The
you.
next is $3,600 for the purpose of providing emergency management-related equipment for TEMA.
Yes.
Yes.
Then stabilization article. At that point, we will be looking and seeing
How much money
what is
we
left
have.
on the table. Right now, I'm carrying $50,000 in the spreadsheet. I strongly recommend we do that.
Okay.
So we'll know the number that night because somebody could make a motion to amend something up or down and utilize those funds, so. So conceptually, FinCom
Yes.
supports putting money in stabilization?
Yeah, as long as we can do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Although we didn't take a real vote on it because again, there's no sum. So
Well, you got a quorum here, don't you?
Yes.
Yes.
When you said they could amend up or amend down, I thought you could only amend down.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
There could be something that, the way the articles are written as a matter of form is to see if the town will raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available version.
Yes.
FinCom?
I mean, I don't.
we don't
It's
do
not
these.
financial, so yeah,
They-
you're right. Yep, gotcha.
Thank
Okay, next is recycling bylaw from the Board of Health. This is deleting the recycling bylaw in its entirety. And the description is, as Board of Health is authorized to create rules and regulations per Mass General Law, Chapter 111, the general bylaw is unnecessary. Thus, the amendment is proposed to avoid confusion where there may exist a conflict between the bylaw and regulations promulgated by the Board of Health. Further, this allows the town to retain flexibility in modifying regulations through public hearing process. The amendment repeals Chapter 102, recycling of the general bylaws.
Sounds good to me. Anytime we can reduce confusion.
Next, we get into zoning. Article 24 is accessory apartment. It's creating to read the description that I received from the planning board. This is to see if the town will vote to amend the town zoning bylaws, accessory apartment and residential district, and add 145-5, word usage and definition with additions to the bylaw underlined and deletions from the bylaw stricken. The general sense here is it's providing the opportunity in our current zoning that doesn't exist now to have accessory units in your house.
I have no problem with it. Okay.
Okay, and Finance Committee won't have something to say. Planning Board will have a vote because by law, all zoning bylaws, they have to have a vote. Article 25 is the first of the multiples of recreational marijuana.
Can we take all of those at once?
We're going to skip those because the only ones that are going to come to the floor are the ones that
Pass the ballot.
pass the ballot anyway.
But we don't know.
So right now, just pass over all of those?
I have a personal opinion, but I don't want to vote on it as a board.
Okay. And then
I agree.
you get to, still recreational. Then we get to Article 33, special legislation.
What page are we on?
105.
Thank you.
The first is the Charter Review Committee. So right now, the Charter Review Report is not yet been received. It's expected
It's drafted
Yeah.
and we're meeting Monday night.
anytime, right?
You'll have it Tuesday.
Yep, so this will be Charter Review's recommendation for revisions to the charter through special legislation. So we taking a pause, a hard pass on that one for now and voting it after, or do you feel confident enough to say that?
I'm
Yes?
okay with it. Yes.
Okay. And then we get to an act authorizing the town of Townsend to continue the employment of Richard Bailey as police chief. This would be special legislation allowing Chief Bailey to work beyond his 65th birthday.
You give a recommendation on this one?
Under the terms of the contract that the town has with the chief, the select board are obligated to put it forth and support it by putting it forth. We can't compel you to vote as an individual voter when you cast your vote, but it making its way forward is part of the contract.
But that doesn't mean we have to recommend it.
No, it can't compel you how you vote, but you gotta at least put it forward.
Pass over them.
Yeah, no comment.
Okay, then we get to the citizen petition articles, Article 35. The first of the citizen petition articles, the water commissioners of the town vote to amend Article 3, Section 3.8, water commissioners of the town charter to correspond with previous town meeting on September 16th, 1933, May 9th, 2017, and May 1st, 2018, to read as follows. This came in by citizen, not from the water department, but by citizen petition.
I have no opinion.
I'm sorry?
Pardon me?
I have no opinion.
I have no opinion on it.
All right, then we get to the next special legislation, which is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen and, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
36?
Yeah, I changed my page backwards. 36, this is another charter change, and this is any person who holds an elective office in the town of Townsend who's held that office for 4 months. This is a recall article.
Yeah, no. I have a no vote.
You have a no vote? Wayne, are you a no comment or a no vote?
I'm no comment.
So we have a tie.
We have a tie, that means no, right? It doesn't pass.
We have 1 no, 1 abstention, which means it's a no.
I mean, by abstention, by putting this in there? Are we voting to put these in here?
No, this is, do you support the article?
Do you support that?
Oh, that's for the townspeople, I have no opinion.
So you're a no. You're a no opinion.
Let me explain why I'm saying no, because I think this one is premature. I'd rather see, I'm concerned about the impact that this might have on the charter movement too.
Well, you've been involved with that, not me.
So, that's why, but.
So are we, a 1 no and a 1 abstention, which is a no, or are we a 2 no?
I'm not voting on it.
He's
Okay, so-
abstaining.
So it's a no
It's a
by
no.
1-0-1. Okay. Article 37, which is coming in by citizen petition as well, and this is to seek the prohibition on thin film single-use plastic checkout bags in town of Townsend.
By August 1st of 2019.
It's written as it came in.
At the Board of Health, we have reached out to invite the senator to a meeting on the 29th. Andrew,
Oh, the person who submitted it?
So we'd like to have a discussion about making that a regulation, not through bylaw. Because we're trying to get rid of the bylaws, so that way we're not having to do this at town meeting, and we'll be more flexible
Okay.
if we need to make more changes.
I have no opinion then.
Okay. And that is the warrant.
That is the warrant.
So
Hefty
I
little
will
devil, isn't
add the votes tonight as they are. And even though I don't yet have the charter report in there, do you mind if I get this up on the web?
Oh, no,
Just so people can start. I've been giving it out to folks, but not really.
that's fine, as long as you bring it down to make the changes and
And then
put it back up.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if people are looking for it and find that it's unavailable, assume that it's being edited and it'll be back in a few minutes. Okay? Okay, where are we?
3.1.
Okay, 3.1, appoint the following to the Town Properties Committee effective March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020.
I move the board appoint the following to the Town Properties Committee effective March 1st, 2019 to February 29th, 2020. Is there February 29th?
Must be.
Yeah. Andrea Wood, Finance Committee Representative, Christine Vital, Conservation Committee Representative, Laura Schifrin, Planning Board Representative, Victoria Tidman, Board of Assessors Representative.
Second. The only question I have is, how many was it that were on that committee? Do we remember?
I thought it was 7.
I think
That's what I
think it is
Seven.
7.
So this gives us 4. I thought we had,
There is a 29th.
I thought we had more.
Maybe
No.
they didn't, after the term expired, maybe they just didn't want to do it.
Yeah. So we really should try to get
There'll
another
be 3
one.
more. Right, there'll be 3 more that need to come before
We
you.
at least need one more to get a, to be able to have majority votes, okay? So so I'll vote for it for these folks.
4 would be a quorum.
4 is a quorum, but it's not gonna give you a,
Odd number.
It doesn't give you an odd number, but you can still do business.
okay,
Yeah.
great,
Yeah.
all right, okay.
Yes.
Yes. All those in favor, yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay. 3.2, appoint Lori Plord as the town accountant effective April 18th, 2019, pending successful contract negotiations.
I move the board appoint Lori Plord as the town accountant effective April 18th, 2019, pending successful contract negotiations.
Jim,
Yes.
Madam Chair,
talk about this.
certainly. Lori has been involved in interviewing the candidates that we've had, if we've had candidates, and as you earlier stated, we haven't had many. We did have 2 weeks ago now that we interviewed, both lovely people, certain great employees, but they just did not have the skill set to come in and be able to do the job that needs to be done. The Finance Committee and the Select Board, earlier in the budget deliberations, recognized what the marketplace is. Specifically, Lori left us not because she was dissatisfied being here, but because she was offered $10,000 more to be next door, with the prospect of a change in position to a finance director at some point in the future. Filing it under the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Lori has had some issues that she's dealt with in the short time that she's been employed in another community, and feels that it's in her professional best interest to be back where she believes the systems that are in place and the folks that are in place provide a better opportunity for her to do her job well and appropriately. So I haven't had a chance to bring it to the full board, obviously, because you've not convened. I've just let you both know, independent of one another, without any discussion in between, that this is an opportunity. I would strongly recommend you consider doing this. She knows us, she knows the systems, she's certified, she's got the skills.
She's easy to work with?
She's easy to work with.
I'll stop you. I'm a yes, so.
Yeah, I'm a yes too, so.
The only
Could you
comment-
make a motion?
Before you do, if I may, the April 18th or some such later date, because she'll need to give her official notice, and then there's going to be a work-off period because she's not going to leave them high and
So
dry.
can we say effective approximately?
Well, April 18th is today, so.
Oh, that's right.
So,
So she's got to give notice and everything, so say May 1st.
she'd probably do 30 days, so mid-May.
Well, she's still kind of helping us out one
She
day a
is.
week anyway.
She is. I just don't want it to be that she's employed in two places as of your vote.
Oh, well then, what's your suggestion?
April 18th or such later date.
So I'll amend that to April 18th, or day in the future, pending her
negotiation.
And we'll come back together to
Next
have
meeting on contracts.
on the contract, okay. So, all those in favor? Aye.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, 4.1, Town Administrator Evaluation. You. You're the clerk, would you like to read this?
Sure.
Just to preface it, this is a summary evaluation, and we'll be meeting with Jim to do negotiations for some kind of an increase or an increased discussion, anyway.
Or not.
Or not,
Or not.
that's right. I'll say or not.
So this has been compiled by our town council, so these are the compilation of the reviews that were given individually. So overall ratings, a 3, meets expectations. General comments, Jim, I found you to be capable, intelligent, knowledgeable, enjoy talking and debating with you. As it makes me think, I hope you realize when I question or challenge you, it is to sure you consider them and allow you to change my view. I appreciate your sharing of your experience with me in the town of, and if I occasionally or not ask for more information, is that my sense it will help more than just me to fully understand the details and validate what is discussed. My observation is that, as all of us do, you enjoy some aspects of your job more than others. I encourage you to challenge you to do more of what does not come easily, as doing so results in building skills and confidence. I hope to see you exhibit more courage and bring forth creative thoughts for improvements with the full knowledge that questions and challenges will come during the board discussion. As we've discussed many times, the best part of board deliberations is that we have the opportunity for open and honest dialogue to be able to come to a better solution than an individual could do on their own. This is a lost art of public sector negotiation, and in my opinion, the biggest benefit of open meeting law. Urge you to avail yourself to the resources at your disposal. Will discover new tools and techniques to keep you growing and motivated. Overall, your work is adequate, but there's room for improvement. The TA position needs to be more forward-thinking, as the financial challenges will continue to grow increasingly difficult. There needs to be more active communication with North Middlesex Regional School District, as this represents over 50% of our budget.
So, do we just vote on this?
Yep, vote to adopt the composite, and then it's a public document, and it's there.
I move that we accept the document as written.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jim, do you need to sign this?
I will. I'll initial one for the
Okay.
for the file. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks. 4.2. Jim, Normington litigation disposition update. I asked for this to be on the agenda so the public would understand what's happening here.
Certainly. A little while ago now, we received notice that we were being sued by a couple of voters in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, one in Hubbardston and one here in Townsend. And the Townsend individual was Caitlin Normington, which is why it's being called the Normington Settlement. And we have insurance counsel that represents the town in cases like this. They have, as a part of our insurance policy, a provision that says if you fail to agree to a settlement that they negotiate, which is your right to do, you can say we don't agree with that. But if you fail to agree with them and the thing goes the full distance and there's damage greater than the amount that they had earlier settled it, the taxpayers locally are on the hook. The insurance company doesn't pay. So when they come forward with a settlement proposal, you have some exposure if you don't say yes. So just framing the issue that way. What this stems from is a provision, and Kathy's here and she'll be able to correct me if I misspeak it. There's a provision in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Voting Act that comes out of the Secretary of State's office that has been interpreted to mean and has been enforced in communities, including in Townsend, to mean that you can't campaign within 150 feet of a polling place. And that's been defined as having campaign literature, buttons, signs, anything.
Sure.
Right, anything that would be used to try to convince someone to vote in a given way. So that's why you've normally seen people at the end of the driveway out here, that 150-foot mark away, or out on the corner here. That was challenged in terms of its constitutionality as a matter of First Amendment rights, freedom of speech and expression. And the settlement in this matter that's been agreed to by the Secretary of State and by your consent, agreed to by the Board of Selectmen, has been also agreed to by the Board of Selectmen in Hubbardston, is that the regulations are going to be rewritten by the Secretary of State, and that's no longer going to be a regulation, and we're going to be just left to deal with people coming through with hats and bells and whistles and buzzers, and that's just the way it's going to be moving forward. The settlement proposal involves, as a matter of finances, a payment of $14,250, which is being paid by the insurance company, and a small portion by the Commonwealth. And it is $200 to Ms. Normington, $100 to Mr. Bailey from Hubbardston, and $13,950 to Webster Sianji LLP, attorney.
So, we were just one of the lucky ones in Massachusetts who happened to get sued to make a point to the state that it's unconstitutional. So just because it becomes public knowledge, I wanted the opportunity to explain that. Okay?
So
You have
from
a
now
question?
on, anybody who comes in that has a button or a hat, or it's fine.
Yep.
Well, the
We're waiting for the regulations.
But we did have that, what do you want to call it? Where the state said to put that aside.
Right.
Well, for
now,
not
but we
picketers and
don't.
stuff though, right? I mean, sign holders, they still have to stay away, I would think, so they don't harass people.
We're hoping that.
We don't know yet. It may be that you can wear a sandwich board and come with symbols. I mean, we don't know.
I should bring my,
Well, that part would be a problem.
I think that's against the,
I agree with
I think that's what I read.
Yeah.
Might be, yeah.
We have yet to see how that's going to end up.
And who knows how long it will take to write this regulation.
Well, the good news is it's the Secretary's office that writes regulations, so it doesn't take quite as long as as going through the legislature.
Yeah.
so I guess my question is, why do they bother having 150, what's the difference they're allowed out for?
They're not gonna have it anymore.
So they're not gonna have anyone to, so everything's okay just to,
Well, they may,
We'll see.
they may still do the no active campaigning within the 150 feet. You can, but it'll be allowed to have buttons, hats, something quiet where you walk in, you vote, you leave. If that's the case, not a lot of impact. But to carry signs and that type of thing, that's a totally different.
Or hand out a pamphlet as
Right,
somebody's
to stand
walking
out there.
through.
Right.
Well,
It kind of,
harassing.
you might want to call the secretary's office and give your opinions, but anyway, we were the lucky ones. Okay. FY20 budget update, you already gave us an update on
You've seen
that.
the 2 changes.
Okay. Town administrator updates and reports.
It has been this book and nothing more, so.
Yes, thank you for that. 5.2, Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, and reports.
I don't have any here, but I have some correspondence to read down below.
We have some dates.
I have some next ones.
Yeah.
So, everybody to know, Monday, April 22nd, 2019, the annual town election, voting at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Big marijuana ballot questions are on there and posted on the website and available at the town clerk's office. I urge everybody to come out and vote because those are very important. April 24th, 2019, review of the FY20 budget and warrant article with the town moderator, town council, and town administrator, Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee. This is the mock town meeting where people can come ask questions prior. April 29th, 2019, Planning Board, public hearing in Great Hall. I'm not sure what that one's for. Does it say?
The public hearing is in part on the marijuana bylaws that would come from the election. Okay.
April 29th, 2019, Charter Committee, public meeting for charter amendments in the Selectmen's Chambers.
Actually, that's been changed. I'm sorry, that's going to be in the Great Hall after the planning meeting.
Okay. And May 7th, 2019, the annual special town meeting in the Great Hall.
Busy times. Okay, what do you have?
So, next ones? So,
5-4.
we have a student award, so we received from the school committee from Neshoba Valley Technical School District. Dear Madam Chairwoman and board members, I wanted to let you know that Amanda Fales of Townsend is a nominee for the Massachusetts Vocational Associate Secondary Student Award. So congratulations, Amanda.
Congratulations, Amanda. It's very nice.
I have Townsend VFW Post 6538 and Auxiliary will hold the Easter egg hunt on the VFW grounds in West Townsend on Saturday, April 20th. In the rain, children 9 years of age or younger who live in Townsend or are relatives of Townsend VFW Post or auxiliary members are welcome to participate. Children should gather in front of the VFW function hall prior to the 2 p.m. sharp starting time. The young people must bring their own bags, pails, baskets, and hold their fines. It is rumored that the Easter Bunny might make an appearance at the Easter egg hunt. This is very active. Veterans group requests that only bring children who live in Townsend to the Easter egg hunt unless you are affiliated with the Townsend VFW Post or auxiliary. You are prompt and you allow children to locate Easter eggs without adult coaching.
Well, you gotta help the real little ones, and the older ones.
And the last one is, what is this one? This is from the library director. Kathy Hill has just celebrated her 25th year as an employee of the Townsend Public Library on April 15th, so congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you for your service.
I did have one other correspondence. I don't know if it was from the Board of Water, or the Chair of the Water Department, or Water Commissioners, I'm sorry. I don't know if you want to discuss that at a future meeting, or...
We actually worked on the agenda today, finalizing the agenda today. I think Carolyn will be posting it tomorrow. We're going to be having an executive session with Town Council 23rd.
It's already posted.
Okay, on the 23rd to talk about executive session for, to discuss litigation.
Okay.
Okay? So, That's all I'm going to say for today.
Okay.
Okay?
That's all I have.
Okay. 5.5, review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants.
We sign payroll and bill payable warrants out of session.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position, and the chair so declares, which she does. Could I have a motion, please?
I move you vote into executive session pursuant to GLC 30A, S21A3 to discuss with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position, and the chair so declares. Clerical union, and we are not coming back to.
We'll be adjourning from executive session. Roll call, please.
We know, yes.
Sue Licio, yes.
Oh,